What's up, West Coast Swing fans? We are here today to talk about
spins and turns.
Probably Megan's favorite subject. Is this your favorite subject?
Definitely.
Why? Because you're good at it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. You might not be as good as Miss Megan, but in this video, hopefully we'll make you pretty close. So here's what we're gonna cover. Whether you're a beginner just struggling with balance in some of your basic turns, or you're super advanced, we're gonna share a lot of different ideas for you. So first things first, what's the biggest struggle that people have with turns?
Balance.
Balance, right? Does this resonate with you? On your 12th pirouette, you just run out of energy. That's never the case, right? The energy is not the issue, right? The ability to spin is not the issue. It's the ability to stay balanced while I'm spinning. So that's the first thing we're gonna talk about. Miss Megan, what's our favorite drill?
It is our three-toe base where we're gonna rock forward.
So we're gonna rock forward onto, explain the three-toe base for us.
Three-toe base means like right where your toes hit the rest of your foot, that's where we're gonna balance on our toes, the three main ones. The
first three toes. So you want to imagine that your weight is on those first three toes. I kind of think about there being a nail drilled between the big toe and the next one, between, not through, right? Right through that space. That's where the energy is going to go. It's going to pick up all the way through your head with your best possible posture. Now there's two types of postures that you're likely to have in our experience, which are either you stand typically with your hips slung forward, right? Holding the baby on the hip. Some people have typically hips slung forward, or like me, my hips tend to be back. So you're gonna have to figure out which one you are and then consciously counteract them so you can stack your blocks. So Ms. Megan, can you get us our
blocks?
props? Our blocks. So what I mean by blocks is this block of weight, this block of weight, and this block of weight. So the way that I describe it is this is the first block of weight, this is my rib cage, and then this would be my head, right? And during the pandemic on a live video, I did this drill and I made them not level like that, and one fell and it broke open live on TV. So I don't want my hips slung forward and I don't want my hips slung back. I want to stack them up, right? And I can rotate around that, but I want to imagine that that's the first place that we create our balance, right? So that's first things first, and you have to just develop that. And Megan talked about our rock drill, and I'm gonna do this sideways to you. Actually, I'll go this way so Miss Megan can see me. I'm gonna rock forward to that three-toe base and hold your balance. And what you're gonna find, first steps first, is you might have trouble holding your balance, right? And one of the things I said to my coach was, I have slight bow legs, and I felt like I ended up balanced over my little toe. I just had to learn to correct that. You probably didn't have that issue, did you?
Oh no, I go toward the outside of my foot too.
Yeah,
I have
so
really high arches.
So I want to really wrap that weight inside. So the first drill, we're going to rock forward and stay there and balance. And just let your muscles freak out so you can develop balance. And you can do this on both feet, of course, right? You want to be able to develop the ability on both feet. Second stage of this, and we're going to get to the actual spin stuff, but this is the first thing. I'm going to rock forward, pivot a quarter turn, and stay. And I want to just stay. And I don't care if you make this quarter turn and you do this, right? Just get used to balancing yourself over that foot so you can develop the balance, right? And you'll find within your own posture, if you have to think about tucking your hips forward, if you're like me, or if you end up slinging your hips forward naturally, you might have to think about, it's gonna feel like you're sticking your bum out, but you just want that, what's the word?
Posture?
Good posture. Anything on posture?
Not on posture. I do want to say, I'm going to lift my pants up. You don't have to come all the way up on if you were in ballet at all, a releve, you only have to be up a little. So that'll also help with your balance.
The way that I describe it is the ball of your foot's attached to the floor and your heel might be on the floor with about enough pressure that you could put a piece of paper underneath it, but you wouldn't crush the piece of paper, right? Just that amount of pressure. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing my quarter turn pivot drill, right? And then once we do a couple of quarter turns, you want to do a half turn. And that's the biggest thing. So second thing I'm going to talk about, and I actually just had this come up with a student a couple of days ago in finishing turns. She was getting what we call back weighted in the turns.
You put too much weight on your heels.
If we're traveling forward, right, the balance point is always forward over the ball of the foot. Even when we're in rotation, I am balanced forward over the ball of my foot. And if I did multiple turns, and we're going to get to chaining these together, if I'm doing multiple turns, you might think that I'm moving this way, and so the tendency all of a sudden becomes my head moves that way and then I'm back weighted, right? And now I'm over my heel, and my student actually right in the corner here got trapped on her heel during a spin. So we want to imagine as we do this half turn that we're staying very forward over that. Let's cover, there's two types of turns. What are the two types of turns we're going to cover?
Chaîné turns and pivot turns.
So let's start with the pivot turns. So,
not my choice. I like chaîné turns.
Here's why we're going to start with the pivot turns, because I want to imagine that I'm pivoting a half turn staying forward before I land back. And this is the first thing that I practice with my students, half turn landing back, because if I'm doing a basic inside turn, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to break this down in a second, but Megan has a half turn finishing back that will allow her to be in good balance. So for me, one of the common things that I see is as we're finishing that inside turn, right, if I have not stayed forward over the left side of my body as I turn, this will allow me to be in good balance as I step back, right? Because I've got my left side over my left foot, my right side over my left foot. My left over my left, right over my right. I think I said that correctly. But if I twist myself in my pivot, I'm going to land twisted. And this happens all the time in West Coast swing. We do an inside turn, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we just fall into that anchor, right? And you end up pulling on your partner and all that stuff. Not good. So the first thing is that pivot drill, landing a half turn back, and if this was West Coast swing, which it is, we would then anchor step. Cool? So balance number 1, practicing that drill, developing those muscles. Posture on top of that, staying forward through the turn in your pivots, and then we'll get to multiple turns, which are called, in our vernacular,
chaîné turns.
Cool. Would you like to describe them, Ms. Megan?
Chaîné turns are going to be your tighter turns. So pivots were bigger. Chaîné turns are going to close your feet and post, close your feet and post, which are going to make them faster.
So can you describe the two parts of the chaîné turn?
Yes. So we call this a post when you step forward in the direction that you're going to go. I'm using my left leg, so we're stepping forward down the line. Then you're going to have the part of the turn where you close your feet, and then we're going to post again down the line. And then we close and post.
So if we looked at a basic inside turn, you learned this in beginner class somewhere in the first couple weeks, this basic inside turn, it's going to include a chaîné turn and a pivot turn. So let's break that down, right? You can narrate, I'll lead. How's that?
Okay, so we have a walk, walk. This is our post. We're going to close our feet. Close, post, pivot, then anchor step.
Cool. One more time.
So we have walk, post, close, post, pivot, anchor step.
So the way I want you to think about the turn is it's not a turn. There are specific parts of it that if you can master, they enable us to do all sorts of cool different things, right? So if we're talking about, so first things first, let's talk about the prep, right? The prep or to prepare Megan to spin, and we won't get super into it. We're just going to worry about the spins today. But one, I'm giving her a little prep, which is allowing her to get forward. And I say allow because I'm not making her, right? When you prep a turn, I will do this all the time, but it's not necessary. I don't need the first prep. I need the second prep, right? I need to allow her to be prepped forward. 1, 2. And if you notice, there's not a big movement to this hand. Just the little emptying of that connection allows her to know to put that side forward. Then, as I close the turn, she closes her feet. She steps back out, which is the key to multiple turns. We'll talk about that in a second. She pivots back, and then we're balanced. So if you're struggling with multiple turns, right, which Megan happens to be quite good at, multiple turns, like how do you know to do multiple turns? Here's why. Because you're not doing 3 turns. You're doing 1 turn 3 times in a row, and each turn has 2 parts. So we lead Megan 1, 2. She's posted on that foot. I close her feet, she turns. She reposts. Why does she repost? Because now she's in the same position she was when we started. I can turn her again, she reposts. I can turn her again, she reposts. I can take the hand down, and then she's done. Does that make sense? So leaders, you have, and this is not actually the scope of this video, but if there's a leader watching,
there you go.
you have two parts of your lead. You're prepping, you're closing the turn, and you're letting her step back out. Then you're closing the turn and letting her step back out, and I like to use this elbow catch drill as I go through it. So to recap, we have your balance, right? You have to master this balance. You can get really crafty with this and go full turns. You want to leave your left side ahead. Anything on the balance stuff for the girls?
Just making sure, I always feel that I am very, very, very tall. So when he says, you know, pull everything up, I literally feel like I pull my head up to the ceiling and being over top that foot.
And backtracking, what's your drill from skating that you used to use?
Oh. This is a balance drill. I don't do it raised at all. I do it on a flat foot. The first level of it is you're just going to, you can have your arms out if you need to. You're just going to pull up your leg and see if you can balance your foot. It might wobble a little bit, but you're finding your stability muscles in your feet and your ankles. The second part of that is closing your eyes and doing it because it takes your spatial awareness away and you teeter your foot and you'll find those stability muscles there too.
Boom, and that's a key. And I have a story for me. Years ago, I used to be really good at turns. I could do 8 pirouettes at my best. And then I got a little older and I lost the ability. And so one of the things I did was actually re-go through these drills, and I was able to get back to where I was, albeit a little bit slower than I was when I was younger, but by just retraining those muscles through these drills. So they work at every level. So if you're someone who wants to do one-footed spins, I'm going to ask you, can you stand on the ball of your foot and count to 10? Because if you can't, you're not going to be able to do 10 revolutions, right? So you have to develop that balance first. So then segueing to our pivot turns, right? We wanted to practice our pivot turns with that balance. If you want to get really good, we do a half pivot again. I want to be able to do a full rotation. And the key to this is remembering that the balance point is over the ball of my foot. Cool? Once I've got that and we get more practical about patterns, we can start to do our chaîné turns in our inside turns, right? We can start to do all sorts of things like this, where we add multiple turns. I don't know where I was going with that. But anyways, you can start to put those pieces together. Now, we've got a really cool thing that we've created over on our website. It's called the Ultimate Guide to Spins and Turns, where we walk through all of our favorite balance drills, chaîné turns, pivot turns. We apply them to all of your basic patterns. We show you how to do one-footed spins. We show you how to do fouette spins. So every spin, duck spins, everything is in that course. So whether you're a beginner or advanced person, you can grab it right here, and we'll see you in the next video.